Welcome to Annie Mac's Home Buying Seminar today. We're so happy to have you. We know here in the audience you may be a first-time home buyer or maybe you're a returning buyer. And so now you're ready to learn what today's market has in terms of what you need to do. So I'm Christine Beckwith, the National Vice President of Realtor and Sales Management for Annie Mac Home Mortgage, and I'm going to bring you through the many steps to the home buying process. And when we're done, you can meet with one of our certified and licensed loan officers here at Annie Mac that will enable you to get your own individual and personalized pre-approval certificate. So what are the advantages of home buying? Well, first and foremost, you're no longer paying rent and giving someone else your monthly income that isn't benefiting you. You are putting that payment into equity that you're building in your home. So that's number one. So right away, you're investing in something that's going to have a return for you. Other advantages include things like tax deductions in terms of the mortgage interest and taxes that you're paying annually on your home. So you have an advantage at tax season that will bring you back more money. Again, another investment return. So also you're going to be improving your credit and your credit score in this process as you make a monthly payment every single month. Gives you an advantage in how your credit is reporting and brings that score up. So again, all positives in the way of home buying. Now, you might be asking, what's my first step? Pretty simple. The very first step of any home buying process is to sit with a mortgage loan originator at Annie Mac Home Mortgage preferably and get your pre-approval certificate done. That's going to give you a home buying edge. Your real estate agent, who you will probably be working with, one of our affiliated real estate agents, we hope, and will help you get your home, needs to have that pre-approval certificate. That is going to give you an edge with the seller and let them know that you can afford the home that you're making the offer on. So with that, let's get started with what that process entails. So as you prepare for your pre-approval, there are many things that we're going to look at. You are going to have to assemble all of your financial documents so that we may review them. Because remember this, if you are getting pre-approved, it is vital that we actually examine your financial documents. If you ever speak with a lender that is doing a pre-qualification or pre-approval and they do not require documentation from you, then they are not doing a thorough pre-approval. So let's start there. Yes, you may have to go fishing through all of your shoe boxes in your closet or wherever you're keeping all your financial documents, but we're going to ask for the minimum things to get this pre-approval, but the things that are vital. What will those include? Well, they will include income documents in the way of the last 30 days pay stubs. So if you get paid weekly, of course, that's 4 of the last consecutive pay stubs. Bi-monthly, 2, and of course if you're on a monthly income, it's just 1. But we're also going to want to look at your last 2 years W-2 statements, the last 2 filed tax return years, whatever they may be. We're going to take a look at those, and that will help us determine what your gross monthly income is for calculating your debt to income ratio. We'll talk more about that later on. In terms of assets, we're going to want to look at what you have in your bank. That includes your checking account and savings account. We may also want to look at your retirement accounts if you need reserves and the program that you're going for needs a requirement of 2 to 6 months reserves. What are reserves? Reserves are 1 monthly payment, proposed payment of your new mortgage. Each program is different and may require some none in the way of reserves, some 2, some 3, 4, 5, or 6. So we're going to take a look at your bank statements. We're going to look at the last 3 months. What are we looking for in your bank statements? Well, we're looking for consistent deposits. We're looking for abnormal deposits. So if there's any large deposits in those bank statements, we're going to ask you to verify and validate what those things are. You may have received during tax time a tax return that shows a large deposit. Easy enough to prove by showing your income tax return and the copy of your IRS check that you received. So keep in mind as you're rolling forward, and we're going to talk in a moment about do's and don'ts of home buying, the home buying process. Make sure that you're collecting this documentation and that you're keeping in mind these things that you may also have to document. So that's asset documentation. We're also going to take a look at your monthly revolving liabilities. The way that we do that is in the form of a credit report. So the credit report that Annie Mac Home Mortgage is going to pull for you is going to be based on 3 credit bureaus. and it's going to give us a FICO score. Those are terms that you've probably heard of. And what that does is it shows us how all credit agencies are reporting your credit, and it actually shows us how you're rating in terms of how you're repaying your monthly revolving debt. We're going to add up that monthly revolving credit, and we're going to divide that into your gross monthly income and come up with a debt to income ratio. Those ratios are guidelined by each program that's available. So based on what you tell your loan officer that you want to put down for down payment, how much you've saved to do a down payment, the loan officer is going to give you program options that are best suited for you and your home buying. In doing that, they're going to tell you what that minimum payment requirement is, what program you qualify for. They then will take a look at your bank statements and make sure that you have in your savings and have had for the past 90 days the savings that you need to make that down payment. So when all of these things are looked at, the liabilities on your credit report, your gross income, the assets that you have, and the program guidelines, it all comes together and you're able to be rendered a number that is your qualifying number for home buying. So let's talk for a moment about the ways that you can prepare for this process. So let's talk about the do's of home buying. Number one thing that you can do is work with an experienced realtor. We here at Annie Mac Home Mortgage have a huge affiliation of national realtors for you. So please ask your mortgage loan originator for an experienced realtor today, because that's going to enable you to work with someone that knows the marketplace, knows the property listings in that marketplace, and can get you the best deal. Just ask our loan officer for that. The second thing that you can do for yourself is start saving for your down payment. It's so important that we see that gradual savings as you move towards home ownership. So be sure to start that today. The next thing that we want you to do is pay down or pay off any low debts that are on your credit report. So if you have small credit card balances or maybe a loan that has less than 6 payments, go ahead and pay that off. And definitely don't accumulate more mortgage credit. I would also tell you that begin to prepare for this pre-approval process and all that documentation that I just covered with you that you're going to need for your loan originator. Start collecting that now and get it ready so that when you meet with your mortgage loan originator later, you have all those things in place. And don't be afraid today if you don't have any of those things with you at our seminar today. It's okay. The loan officer that you're working with today at the seminar will take down your information and follow up with you and give you an easy way to send that documentation in, either by fax, email, or scan by email. There's a million different ways that you can send that stuff in, and they'll do the pre-qualification for you. So now let's talk about the don'ts of pre-approval. And there are plenty of these. One of the most common mistakes that home buyers make when they are doing the pre-approval process is they incur new debt. Often we'll see home buyers, after they've done pre-approval, begin the process of actually buying a new car. So when the new debt is added, it changes your debt to income ratios, and that actually is not a good thing in the middle of the home buying process. So we tell you not to do that. We also tell you don't make any large deposits in your savings or checking accounts. During the process, we're going to be watching your assets, making sure that you have enough money down, but large deposits will be required to be documented. So it could mean that you have to do more documentation. We also tell you not to go out and open new credit cards and ring up new debt that would also shift your debt to income ratios to too high. Those things can fluctuate and actually make your pre-approval negate. And that is not a good thing. So we tell you all these things up front so that you can stay as stable as possible. Two other things about buying the home that's really important in the don't category. Number one, don't walk away from a home just because it needs a little TLC. As you know, over the last decade, a lot of homeowners have not had a lot of equity to do home improvements, but that doesn't mean that the house is in a dilapidated state. It might just need a little bit of handiwork. So when you go to the home, if you see some small repairs or even some small cosmetic things that need changing, we tell you to take into consideration the DIY opportunities that you're going to have in this home buying process. Last but not least, we tell you do not take the seller's opinion in buying a home of the condition of the house. We want you to get home inspector, not to be confused with a home appraiser, but a home inspector that will come in and actually look at the bones of the house, the roof, the life of all of the plumbing and electricity in the home, even if there's any toxic lead in the paint, if the home was built prior to 1975, or if there's asbestos in the pipes. Those are the type of things that a home inspector are going to give you, and that's going to give you the ability to know when you buy the house the condition of the home. So with all those don'ts in mind, keep in mind that Annie Mac Home Mortgage has loan officers that are licensed and able to handle this expert advice to all of you. You do not have to remember the things that you're learning at this home buyer seminar, because the great news is you're going to be affiliated tonight as a loan officer, with a loan officer rather, and you're going to be able to get all this great advice that I'm giving you from your loan officer, and they will hold your hand throughout the entire process, start to finish. That's the great news. So now I want to tell you a little bit more about your credit report. One of the things we always get asked is, will this affect my credit score? That's a great question. No, it will not affect your credit score. Every time someone pulls your credit, it actually does an inquiry. That inquiry is just showing any other lender that might potentially pull your credit to beware that another lender has pulled the credit. Why is that? Because when we're considering your debt to income ratio, let's say you had been out shopping for a car. We might see car dealerships that show inquiries on your credit report. That might warn us to ask you, did you end up buying a car? Because it might be in that window of actually shopping for the car and getting the car and that loan showing up on your credit report. So the quick answer is no, an inquiry will not affect your credit score. However, multiple inquiries can eventually take your credit score down approximately 5 points. So what we urge you to do is find a lender, Annie Mac Home Mortgage, of your choice, and to stay with that lender, because that lender is going to enable you to go all the way through the process but not pull your credit multiple times. What's the difference between a soft copy credit report and a hard copy credit report? I'm glad you asked. The hard copy credit report is actually a pull from all 3 credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. It's going to have information that have been compiled by the 3 bureaus and render you a FICO score. The things that they're looking at when they're looking at your credit report is outstanding balances that you have, your payment history. Also, how have you been making those payments in terms of slow, on time, or in advance? Things like that will actually affect your total score. So keep in mind that Annie Mac Home Mortgage is going to do a hard pull from the 3 bureaus, and we're going to look at your FICO score. The FICO score that you have will help us pick the program for you that's best for you and the needs that you're trying to get from your home buying experience. So finally, all of this brings us to the extra documentation that you could incur. What I tell you is that if you have circumstances that impact your financial debt or income, those things are important in qualifying you. What could those things be? Well, if you've had a divorce and you're receiving or paying child support or alimony, that is something that will be taken in consideration by the lender. So you may have to supply a copy of your divorce decree and show a history of receiving or paying out those payments, and those will be considered in your debt to income ratio. You're also going to need a valid driver's license, so be prepared to bring your license to your pre-approval or supply a front and back copy of that driver's license when giving the other documentation. Finally, if there's been a large deposit that came in the form of a gift, or if you're going to be using a gift and gift monies are allowed on your program, then you're going to need gift documentation. What is a gift, you ask? It's actually a very close friend, it is allowable on some programs, or a family member giving you money towards your down payment if you do not have enough of your own down payment saved. So it can be all in some programs that are allowed, and it can be part in other programs. There's actually a gift affidavit that you would complete, but there's actually a paper trail for the gift. There's the donor's ability to give the gift, so we have to see that that money was sitting in their account for a period the same as it would be for ours, 90 days. And they have a documentation they can bring to their bank and get it actually certified as to what their assets and the last 90 days look like. You also have to show the check going over to you, the home buyer, and then finally the deposit slip of that money going in, and last but not least, the money being in that account and showing the balance in your account now shows that gift money. So those are all, not all, but some of the extra things that you may encounter. I'm going to end by saying this. Keep an open mind. We know that everybody gives advice on home buying, especially those that have been through the process. A lot has changed, especially if you're sitting in the room today and you did home buying 7 years ago, 5 years ago. So much has changed. Guidelines have become more strict in some cases, and there may be more documentation that's asked for. What we tell you is that come prepared to keep an open mind throughout the entire process. As your loan goes through the process and is reviewed by many different people in the setup, processing, and underwriting departments, all the way to our closing department, you may get asked for additional documentation throughout and leading up to the days and even hours within your closing. As long as you keep an open mind and know that's just how it goes and it's part of the process of verifying your financial worthiness, then you're going to sail through this with no problem. So we thank you today for coming to our ENIMAC home mortgage course, home buying course. We welcome you back to home buying. We're very excited to help you make the American dream, and thank you for allowing us to spend this evening or lunch with you today. Thank you.